All right, let's go ahead and move on to the multiple choice of the final exam review. This is the bulk of your final exam review because remember, your final exam is all multiple choice, all calculator. So you should be getting used to these types of questions. So number 17, to take a survey, student council will randomly draw 5 names from each second period class. After they're done, they realize they need more names, so they survey themselves since they are already there and it's easier. Is this okay? So first of all, hopefully you guys know that doing something because it's easy when you're taking a sample is never okay. So I'm going to get rid of the yeses right away. Okay, mostly random, not good enough. You have to have complete random. And yes, because they were elected to think for the people, that doesn't matter. Okay, you have to have complete random to be a properly drawn sample. So no, it's either because the sample is no longer truly random and that's going to cause bias to be involved, or the sample included some people from every class. Well, it's definitely going to be letter C because once you stop with random samples, you are going to introduce bias. Okay. Number 18, a surveyor asks boys in the school if they love their girlfriend while the girl is standing next to them, with the results to be published in the newspaper. So what bias is present? So just think about this, guys. If you were standing next to your girlfriend and asked if you love their girlfriend, what do you think may happen? Well, first of all, you're definitely going to have some response bias, okay? So response bias is in B and C. We talked about this in the true-false. Response bias is when who you are talking to or who's around you causes you to give the wrong answer or to lie. I'm not saying you don't love your girlfriend, but you may lie about it because you know it's right in front of her and it's going to be published in the newspaper. The other option that could happen is non-response. Voluntary doesn't work because voluntary means you picked yourself to be part of the survey, which you didn't. They came up to you and asked you, but you could just choose not to respond and keep walking. So that'd be letter C. Number 19, to take a survey, LASIA uses a random number generator to pick 50 student ID numbers from a list of all ID numbers, and those students are surveyed. Which of the following are true statements? So she was trying to reduce bias, definitely, right? Anytime you do anything with randomization, that's trying to reduce bias. She was trying to reduce variability. So remember, a random sample and variability don't really have any hand-in-hand correlation. So we can't necessarily say that. She was trying to increase sample size. Well, that's not true. She already knew she was going to pick 50 student ID numbers. And she was trying to save time or money. Definitely not, right? If you take all students' ID numbers and randomly pick 50 of those, that is not going to save time or money. So it's actually only letter A. All right, number 20. We take a staff survey by asking the 4th teacher in the staff directory a question, then every 10th teacher after that. So what method of sampling is used? So remember, if you take every blank teacher after the first one is randomly picked, that is a systematic sampling method. So letter D. So every nth teacher or every nth thing is systematic. Number 21, to measure the average weight of a deer on a piece of land, a ranger marks off her land in 1,000 square foot section, then takes all of the deer from 3 randomly selected sections and measures them. What sampling method was used? Well, since they took all of the deer from 3 randomly selected sections, if you take all at one place, that's going to be your cluster. Okay, some of you got confused during the school year at the very beginning of the semester, the difference between cluster and stratified. So stratified is when you group them by a homogeneous characteristic, and then you randomly take so many from each group. Cluster, you group them by location for the most part, and then you take all at randomly selected locations. So that's the big difference there. Number 22. A student organization wants to assess the attitudes of students towards a proposed change in hours that the library is open. They randomly select 50 freshmen, 50 sophomores, 50 juniors, and 50 seniors. The sampling method described is, so since they took so many freshmen, so many sophomores, so many juniors, and so many seniors, that's a stratified random sample. Okay, that's because all these people have that fact that they're a freshman in common. All these people have the fact that they're a sophomore in common, and so on. And they didn't take all of them there. They only took 50 from each group. Okay, let's go ahead and flip to page 3. So number 23, I email 50 students an anonymous survey about their recreational activities. So what type of bias occurs? So this, you pick them, so it cannot be voluntary, okay? So when you pick them, you don't have the question. Let me finish that last thought. When you pick them, you cannot volunteer, right? So it can't be voluntary response. We've never talked about interviewer bias. And the question, well, you don't even know what question you actually asked them, so you can't tell if your question tried to influence their answer. So the only thing that could potentially happen is non-response. You email these people and they just never email you back. 24, Jane wants to know why certain residents of her town chose not to vote in local elections. She randomly selects 25 people from the white pages of a local phone book as her sample and calls them. What type of bias could not occur? So be careful with this on your final exam. If it says not or which one's false, pay attention to that. So let's see, under coverage. Well, think about it. If you go to a phone book, not everyone's going to be in the phone book, especially in our day and age with cell phones. Okay, so under coverage could definitely happen. So we want which one does not occur. Voluntary response. Well, if she's calling the people, is there any way for them to volunteer to respond? No. So that's why it's going to be letter B. Just to explain response bias. So response bias, these people may lie just to please her with why they chose not to vote in local elections. So that could be an option for bias. In non-response, well, she can call these people all she wants, but if they don't answer, there's nothing she can do about that. So all three of those bias could potentially occur. The one that cannot is voluntary response because these people cannot volunteer to respond. Let's check on time really quick. Good, still doing good. 25, which of the following is false? So increasing sample size decreases variability. Well, that's definitely true. We've talked about that a lot, especially in the true false. Increasing sample size decreases bias. We don't really have anything that says there's a correlation between sample size and bias. So that could be false. Using a random sample decreases bias. That's definitely true, right? Randomization decreases bias. Stratified sampling reduces variation. That's definitely true. That was a big fact we talked about in that first unit. So if you stratify, you're going to have less variability. And a single random sample may not accurately represent the population. That's true. Yes, you took it random, but you don't know that it's going to accurately represent the population. That's always a risk in taking our sample. So that's why it's got to be letter B for false.